Hey everyone, I'm your host, Dan Nerdall, and I'm coming to you not with a Around the Bird Bath episode, rather to what we believe our very first ever solely dedicated UTSA softball episode podcast interview. And we've covered it before. Jared and Adrian have covered it before, but this is kind of the very first time that we're focusing specifically and solely on UTSA softball in an effort. One of our goals at Alamo Audible is to increase coverage and attention to all UTSA athletics. You have already seen that with, UTSA golf interviews, tennis, soccer. Just dropped our very first UTSA volleyball interview. CJ handled that and did a great job with it, but wanted to take some time and talk UTSA softball. A lot of changes over the summer, bringing in a new coach. They are getting going with their fall season with some scrimmages very shortly. If you're a Patreon member, you're getting early access to this episode. And but follow along the UTSA softball Instagram, Twitter for scrimmage time and dates for the fall ball season. But had the great pleasure of interviewing UTSA softball infielder, primarily third base, junior Camryn Robillard. Camryn is from Cedar Park, Texas. She went to Vista Ridge High School. As a freshman at UTSA, she started all 48 games, had a 268 batting average, 33 runs, 25 RBIs, 7 doubles, 8 home runs, 7 multi-hit games, 6 multi-RBI games, and had an 880 fielding percentage. Camryn also was on the Conference USA all-freshman team. I had a little harder time finding her stats from last year. The UTSA Athletics page recently went through a big update, and I'm not sure with that if some of the data hasn't been fully migrated over yet. But Camryn did mention to me before we started the interview that she hit 237 last year, 33 hits, 5 home runs, 22 RBIs, and also started all 49 games. So huge contributor at UTSA, looking for big things for her junior season, both in the fall season where there's more scrimmages, and then the spring where, conference play and the American Athletic will kick. And before we kick over to that interview, want to go through and thank our big money donors and our board of trustees. So big money donors, Ben Tovar, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, the Bunch family, Zach Esperqueta and the San Antonio Podcast Network, the Fikes family, Alejandro Benavides, Jacob Cavazos, board president for the UTSA Alumni Association, Matt and Mandy, Jenna and Andy Anzaldua, Home Field Apparel, where you can use the discount code UTSA Wants Home Field for 15% off your first purchase or 10% off for returning customers. That supports Alamo Audible and the Republic of Football Podcast Network. Also, our Board of Trustees members, Digitique, John Alwell, Lino Perez of Dos Rowdies Tailgating, Gary and Ruben representing the UTSA Bird Gang Tailgate, Ray Redding and Meep Meep Apparel, Brandon Grell and the Grell Realty Group, and Elizalde and Proficient Benefit Solutions, Ian McClendon and SYCR LLC, Brandon Padron, Ryan Squires, and Waterman Construction. So a big thank you to our board of trustees, our big money donors, all of our Patreon supporters. Y'all's generosity is one of the reasons why I get to provide the Around the Bird Bath coverage, why we get to bring these, increase our coverage with these interviews, focusing on all UTSA athletics. And a couple things for Patreon members. If you're a Patreon member, you get to listen to this a few days early. So if you're listening ahead of time, thank you for being a Patreon donor. And then we've got a Patreon summit coming up for anyone who is at the booster tier and above. So I believe for a few more days, you can still vote on which day works best for you. it's gonna be during the bye week, kind of a filler for not having as much football content. And I believe the time is set for 8 p.m. But the day, we're still trying to figure out what day works best for everyone to get just as many people on the call and talk about all things UTSA athletics and all things UTSA. So looking forward to that and connecting with some of the Patreons through that. And then I believe that episode will be available after the fact. So if you can't attend, the recording will be provided so you can listen to what some of the questions and discussions were. So with that being said, let's take a quick Cumbia break and cut over to the interview with Camryn. And I think the listeners will be excited to hear just the improvements that Camryn's been making in the offseason and the team in general, and some of the goals and big expectations that the girls are going to be having coming into next season, or their 2024 season with Coach Van. So hope you enjoy the interview. Thanks for listening. Okay, everyone. So we are back from the Cumbia break. And like I mentioned already, we have UTSA Softball third base infielder, junior Camryn Robillard. Camryn, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm glad we were able to get this lined up. And I think it's going to be a great kind of bi-week content. And you guys are getting rolling with fall ball. I know that. So we're recording this on Thursday, September 21st. You've got your first scrimmage coming up this weekend with Texas A&M Kingsville.
Yes, doubleheader. We are ready.
Okay, great. And it's starting to finally cool off a little bit. I was mentioning offline, I myself play a little recreational softball, and we don't get out there till about 6:30 in the evening. It's 110 degrees, and you're questioning your decisions and why you're on a patch of dirt at 6:30 p.m. when it's 105 degrees outside. But it's starting to cool down a little bit, so that's nice too.
Super. Yes. I mean, these practices have been brutal, and then we go out on the turf at like 12, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just drenched in sweat. It's just a long day, and it's only like we're done at 12, and I'm like, wow, it feels like 6 p.m. I should be asleep right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, for sure. And practice is going well, and the girls are meshing together and everything.
Yes, these practices have been like super intense. I mean, our first practice, we just jumped right into it. We did a scrimmage, our first practice, which is like crazy. We were all like, whoa, what's going on? But no, they just threw us out there and we're like, let's see what you can do. Let's see how y'all bond. Let's see strengths, weaknesses. And it was really cool to see, because it's like, how would you know how you play together unless you just go out there and do it? So that gave us a good baseline to work with. And now we're just kind of taking it step by step. And our coach said today, she was like, we don't have to be perfect this weekend against our doubleheader. We need to be at our peak March 8th conference. So that makes it a little less stressful, because it's like, we're not going to be perfect in the fall. Like, that's what the fall is for, to get all these kinks out, work through things, be a team, bond together. So I'm super excited because things are going very well right now.
That's great to hear. And we're going to talk more about maybe why those practices are having that approach. Obviously, most of our listeners probably know a pretty big coaching change at the top of the ranks with UTSA Softball at the end of the 2023 season. And we'll get more into that. And we'll talk about, scrimmaging with each other and what it's like when you finally see someone else's face at the end of at the plate or in the field. But first, let's talk about kind of your journey to UTSA. This is going to be your junior season, and you've been at UTSA the whole time. You didn't transfer in from anywhere. So what's the recruitment process like for softball? What was your recruitment process like? Your journey choosing UTSA, kind of all of those things.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the recruiting process started probably in 14U. That's when it started. Like, people started looking at you, seeing you, getting emails, you're emailing them. But then again, you're, 14 years old. So it's kind of hard to base where you're going to be when you're like 18, 20 years old. But that's where it started. So usually at 14, you have all these like bigger schools, like come to my camp, like Texas, A&M, all them. They're like, come to our camp. And then it's like, obviously they want money. But as you get to like 16, 18U, you start to filter out those big schools. You start to set, realistic goals. Like, am I going to play at Florida or OU or, LSU? No, probably not. So, you start to filter those schools out and you just start emailing and you see these coaches come see you. You're like, okay, who's coming more often? And then you just start to like tunnel vision on, those schools. So I think the coaching change or the recruitment change where you could offer someone, that changed right before was it sophomore year or junior year? Which kind of put me in a panic. So I was like, oh shoot, like now I gotta wait. It was kind of like the fear of unknown. But it ended up working out for me because I really got to like dial in on like what I wanted. I matured a little bit. I was like, do I want to go out of state? Do I want to stay in state? How close do I want to be to home? Do I want to play? So I need to go to a school where I'm going to play, where I like the coaches, most importantly, like the area. So that gave me a lot of time to really think about it and, figure out myself. So I don't even know the day for when they called me. That completely like blanked, but Cheatham called me on September 8th, 14th, something like that, of my junior year. And she offered me, she said, this is this, and this, and I'll give you this, and you come do this. And I was like, okay, I'll be there. So that's how that happened. And I got here. Obviously, I met the coaches. I'd communicated with them before, but they're amazing. Our old coaching staff, Salters, Cheatham, Ronnie, they are amazing. I cannot be grateful enough. Like they got me to where I am today. So I really respect them. And they made the transition super easy for me coming in as a freshman. It wasn't like cutthroat. I mean, yeah, I kind of got thrown out there a little bit, like, hey, you're going to play here and you're going to stay there, that type of thing. But I mean, to be honest, there's no better way to do it. Like throw them to the wolves, like figure it out. So I figured it out and everything ended up falling into place for me. And, I love it. I love it here. Even when we were going through some really tough times, I was like, I'm still extremely grateful to even be here in the first place.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. And that makes such I mean, it's interesting. Like, so the listeners know, like, I'm an older college student. I just turned 33. So like when I say like when I was in high school or when I was in middle school, 15 plus years ago, obviously it was a lot different across the board. Like I played sports, but I was not anywhere near good enough to even, play consistent varsity or whatever. But the friends that I had that were really good wrestlers or really good football players, it's interesting to see like how the exposure has changed, even in like competitions available. Like it seems nowadays like there's club play everywhere. Like and for better or for worse, like there's a little bit of like well, if my kid can't play on this club team, I'm gonna go start another club team,
Right.
which is great in terms of opportunity, but softball feels like it's kind of like in the heart of that club play where there's leagues all over and opportunities all over the place. So to hear you talk about the recruitment process at such a young age, in some ways like you're a freshman, but there's still a lot you're figuring out. You've got goals, and then how complicated that process can be. There's so many rules, and you might have some coaches or some boosters that are like, well, let's see if we can stretch those rules a little bit. So I can imagine, as you're like what you mentioned, going through high school and then it changing in a pretty big way, that can be tough to stay on top of like all of the regulations and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, but like I said, it ended up working out. I think that rule it should be in place. I mean, 8th graders, 7th graders were committing to Florida. Like have barely hit puberty. How do you know you're going to be a crazy good athlete when you're 20 years old? Like it was just like mind blowing. I was like I'm still watching SpongeBob, and you're committing to a D1 SEC school. So I was like, that's just crazy to me.
Sure. Yeah, no, for sure. And you came in, so I think had the race just opened when you came in, like your
Yes,
first. Okay,
thankfully.
so obviously you've had the benefit of having the race facility at your disposal and your use your entire eligibility, but any like when you came in, were the girls like talking about like, let's call it BR, like before race or before the race facility?
Oh yes, they call it like the dungeon. I think I only went in there on my either unofficial, yeah, probably my unofficial. And it's not bad. It's just not like up to par with, where I think UTSA is as a school and program. Um, Study hall and stuff down there, just I don't think the facilities were that great, but I mean, race is amazing. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to go check it out, but it has literally everything, like everything you can think of. Food, any weight, the weight room is crazy. It just makes you like want to go in there and lift. It's like just nice to have. And then you have study hall, bunch of computers, little small spaces to, just study, get your mind right. You have tables, just talk amongst your friends and whatever. And then the people in the race too, just amazing resources. Like they will help you with literally everything. Anything you need help with, someone is there for you. So it's really cool, and I'm super grateful and lucky.
No, for sure. I saw it, so it would have been last fall. They were doing a conference. Somebody from the Spurs came by and it was kind of like a student athlete mental health approach, but they basically told everyone like if you go, then and it might have only been for the kinesiology department. But it was basically like if you go, then you can get a tour of race afterwards. So I was like, yeah, I can sit through a seminar to tour race. And I was really impressed with it. And I think one thing that Dr. Campos is doing and her staff and the future of there's going to be leaps and bounds that the athletics department takes both as a on the field performance and off the field that are going to be happening, well after you're there because you're only in college for so long, of course. But the girls on the softball team and other like UTSA athletics are setting that standard and setting the tone. And it's encouraging to see like what Dr. Campos is doing because even Park West, and I know that's soccer and track and field. I mean, they just opened that, but they're already going to host the AAC outdoor track and field championships next spring. So it's like right away, we're already like, Mike Oresco from the AAC is already like, hey, like we recognize what you guys are doing. You're building these top of the line facilities. Hopefully baseball and softball can follow in the near future and continue to, because there's so much about being a student athlete and workload and injuries. Like we were talking offline with my recreational softball. I'm not going to lay out and injure myself over a rec softball league, but y'all are playing Division I softball. I don't know exactly how exit velo correlates with softball, and I know that the field is shorter, but susceptible injuries, so you need that top care. And even, I mean, how I don't know if you've had a lot of like chronic injuries during your time at UTSA. I know just looking at your stats, you've played, started all the games, both your freshman and sophomore season, but having that relationship with UTESCA and like in the treatment room, like what is that like and how beneficial is that?
Like I said, they are there to help you with literally everything. And our trainer this year, Brandy, she's amazing. You just get like super personable with these people. And it's like I can go to her for anything. I can go to her about boy problems. I can go to her, my shoulder hurts, like literally anything. I can just go in there, I can roll out if I need to, I can stretch, I can sign up for treatment and she will take care of you. It's just like it's super nice to have on hand. It's like I don't really need to worry about anything from mental health to injuries. I don't need to worry about it because they have it covered and they have our bags. They're there for us. They are working so hard every single day. And it's just amazing to have, and I appreciate them so much.
No, for sure. That's huge. And I'm excited to see. I've seen kind of some of the master plans for what they want UTSA softball and baseball to look like. It takes time, takes money, but hopefully sooner rather than later, we can see those changes continue to be given into the program. Let's talk about a little bit about your playing time. So you came in right away as a freshman, making an immediate impact on the team. You mentioned that a little bit already, but kind of getting thrown to the wolves, starting all 48 games, put up pretty good stats, 268 batting average, 33 runs, 25 RBIs, 8 home runs, 7 doubles. So power hitter, extra base hits, drew the walks. You had 7 multi-hit games. What were some of the biggest challenges, or what was some of the big challenges transitioning to collegiate softball and coming up to the Division I level, or coming into the Division I level right away and playing at a high level?
I mean, it was obviously super intimidating at first. I was like, wow, some of these girls are like crazy good. But then I kind of just like, let it sink. I was like, we're all here for a reason. Like, we all play D1 softball. No one's like, so I kind of just got that through my head, but it was really the fear of like failure that I had. I was like, I don't want to disappoint these girls. Like, we have like 23-year-olds and I'm just little like 18-year-old girl, like walking in. I'm like, oh, well, now I'm on the field with you. So I had to gain their respect too. But I was like, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to make anyone mad. I don't want to make the coaches mad. But in turn, that kind of like made me a little bit inconsistent at first, because when you fear failure, you're probably going to fail. So it was kind of just getting over that little hump. Like, we're all here for the same reason. We want to win, we want to play. So I worked my butt off. Every single day after practice, I would go in the cages, I would go on the field, I would get a throwing partner, we do something. And so I would just feel confident when I got on the field, and I didn't have that fear of failure. So I kind of just went out there, did my thing. It definitely took me a little bit to get in my groove. I definitely had some rough games, rough times. I mean, I had a few errors, but just gaining that confidence that you didn't really need in like travel ball, because it's just like, oh, we're just going out there for this tournament. You have like 6-7 games that you're playing. You're like, oh, one bad game, boom, next game. No, in college, like, you have a bad game, your playing time is on the line. Like, it's not just like, oh, forget about it. Like, no, I mean, they're paying you to be here, so you need to show out and you need to put 100% in every single game, or you will be replaced.
Yeah, no, and that's a great way to look at it. And I mean, there's always, someone nipping at your heels, and it's hard too, because as much as all of the girls on the team want to succeed, and you're playing for your own playing time, or you're playing to catch someone else, Coach Cheatham previously, and now, Coach Van, I mean, their job's on the line too. And this is their livelihood, and and they've got to put the best team out there, and they've got to, hold up their end of the bargain and their deal with Dr. Campos, that they're going to, not only impact you girls off the field, but put a good product on the field as well. And so there's a lot of pressure on both sides, and, staying loose. But I know this is getting in baseball a little bit, but Coach Hallmark always talked about, he doesn't, necessarily emphasize pressure, but he doesn't shy away from pressure with the baseball guys. And I imagine, and we'll get into this more in a little bit, but I imagine with Coach Van's her resume and some of the things she's accomplished, she's probably got a very similar mindset and pedagogy when it comes to coaching. And so I'm excited to talk about that in a few minutes and hear more about that. When you came in as a freshman, who were some of the girls that kind of took you under their wing, and how did they kind of mentor you and show you the ropes? Maybe even just, hey, like when we go on road trips, here's how we act. And now that you're a junior, what are some things that you're kind of trying to do with some of the freshman girls coming in and some of the younger girls that are new to the team?
Right. So my freshman year, my biggest role model was Riley Grunberg. I still actually look up to her a lot. I think she's the reason I succeeded my freshman year as well, because she was just someone. I was just like a little puppy following her. I was like, this is what she's doing when she's hitting. I was like, I'm gonna do this when I'm hitting. You know, she would go up and do good, and then I would go up and do good because I was like, I want to be like that. I'm gonna be like that. So she kind of took me under her wing. I feel like people, Taylor Medina, KB, Marina, Estelle, all of them really just did a good job of leading me in the right direction because once we figured out who was playing, who was starting where, they were like, you need to figure this out now. Like you gotta, I mean, you're on the field, you gotta figure it out. So they just guided me and just told me some really valuable things and just worked me through things. I mean, I got very stressed out at one point. I was like, oh my gosh, why am I even here? Like this is so stressful. I just got to a breaking point. I was like, wow, like this is crazy. I've never felt like this before. And they were just like, hey, it happens. Like just take deep breath. Like you're gonna work through it. This is just softball. This does not define you. This is not you. But overall, they just did a super good job of taking me under their wing and just like, I guess, bringing me to the player I am today. So with these freshmen, I think a big piece that we were missing last year was the team chemistry part, which is huge in softball. I mean, you could have as many good individual players as you want, but if you don't bond as a team, you'll never be that good. If you don't play as a team, I don't care if you have the number one home run hitter. If the entire team is not on the same page, you just won't win games. So this year, and the freshmen and transfers have made it super easy. They're all so amazing. But we've been trying to do as many team things as possible, like going to football games, just hanging out outside of softball and just talking. And we have this big group chat. We all like send stuff in. Everyone's super funny. And then our returning girls are also amazing at the including part. Like everyone just wants to be here. And it's just honestly super fun. Like some people forget that softball and, baseball, football, all that, it can be fun, but everyone forgets that part because it's so like cutthroat. It's like, no, we're here for this, this, and this. And I'm like, yes, but if you can't just like drown yourself in this stress and all that, you won't last. You're not going to make it. So just having fun and just all of us doing all these things together, laughing together, it just makes it super easy to, play this sport that's unreasonably hard.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that's unique and kind of neat about baseball, softball is, it's not like football where you're like 100 yards away from the field and there's fans screaming. And, in a moment of frustration as a fan, if you yell something at the opposing team or the ref, like it's like, well, they can't even hear you. Softball is so much more intimate. Like you're right on top of the field, you're right there. Like when you go out to UTSA softball games, like you can hear all the girls in the dugout and you guys are doing all your crazy team cheers and your coordinated, like rhythmic, like battle cries and all these neat things. And you can really get a feel for the emotion. Whereas like other sports, it's like, I think Keegan was talking about tennis. Like we had her on for a tennis interview and she's like, yeah, you can't really say anything. Like you can't really interact or, chirp at the opposing player or officials or anything. Where baseball, softball, it's like you can come up with some pretty creative banter and there's limits, of course. And I know as the players, like the leash or the freedom is probably even a little shorter because the umpire could be like, hey, tone it down. But yeah, you can definitely pick up that chemistry and how important it is. And you can notice when it's not there as a fan or just looking on and stuff. So that's great to hear that the culture is great and the girls are all connecting and that can really carry a team. You look big picture, like the San Diego Padres, they brought in all these top all-stars and they spent all this money bringing in all these top people and they're going to finish like 20 games below 500 or like 10 games below 500. So, there's a lot more than just who the best player is on the field, like you mentioned. And so, so we just started the fall semester. How are classes going? How's everything going with that?
Oh my gosh, I'm like drowning in work. I feel like I'm taking an accounting class right now. Oh my gosh. I am just, it is like a foreign language. And I have a tutor now, I have some people helping me understand it and stuff. But I'm like, who willingly does this and how? How do you do it? Because I'm so confused all the time and the workload is insane. But other than that, I'm in some like marketing and management classes that it's a workload too. So it's like, oh my gosh, I'm
Yeah.
figuring it out. I am stressed though.
Yeah, well, and you guys have a lot on your plate, and I mean, it's gonna obviously pick up in the spring too, when the actual season starts, and going on the road trips and traveling, and rain delays and everything like that. But to the accounting thing, so I had a class last year in the business building, and we'd always walk in right as a finance class was finishing up, and I just remember looking at the board, and I'm just like, what is that? I don't even know like what that is talking about. It just seems so
It's
foreign and
insane.
everything.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
so I
not even
commend you
like the
for
big math part. It's just like adding and subtracting. Sometimes you'll divide. It's like if you don't know what something means, like you're done. You're done.
yeah,
And then one problem leads to the next seven. So if you get that wrong, you're gonna get the next seven wrong. So it's like, oh my gosh. But I'm
yeah.
figuring it out. I'm passing. So that's good.
There you go. That's great. That's great. So coming off the summer, what like what opportunities are out there for you girls in the summer? I mean, are there summer leagues you can go play? Do you kind of just hang out together and work on the team bonding? Like, what are you guys doing throughout the summer?
So everyone really goes home. We have people from all over, so no one's really in the same area. I
Mhm.
myself stayed in San Antonio with Taylor and Jamie. They're like my neighbor right across the street, so that was super nice. Um, we don't really have summer leagues. I know one of our girls played in a summer league, but I think you have to be like eligible still to
Okay.
play, like old enough. It's a weird thing, but we're not like baseball where you actually, I think we do have summer leagues. I don't know. I haven't really looked into that. That's really not my thing. I don't think I tell everyone ever. I'm like, I don't think I'd play summer ball again. Like I finally got my first free summer since I was 6 last year. And then I was like, I'm gonna take advantage of it and I'm gonna take advantage of this summer. But even though you're not playing summer ball, like we still our little group and Emily Deer was in San Antonio too. Um, we would go to race and we would lift Monday through Thursday with our strength coach, Coach Sophia. So even though we aren't playing, summer ball, we're still getting all of our reps in, all of our weight. We're doing all of that, going to the field, going to the cages. So honestly, to me, that was more beneficial than playing some random summer ball league, which I know a lot of the bigger schools, those girls do those summer leagues, and I'm sure it really benefits them. But personally, I just rather take reps and lift and stay on top of everything because in the fall we're gonna do live and stuff anyway. So
Yeah, I can imagine, like emotionally and physically, like getting up every day, or, it's finally summer break, and softball, like it starts pretty early in the winter, in the spring, and then depending on how successful the conference run is, and maybe regional bids, like you can get into, I think the Women's College World Series like stretches into like June, maybe even a little bit into July.
yeah, and that's crazy because in May I am like drained. I'm
Yeah.
like these poor girls, like I could not even imagine how their bodies are feeling. Like it is insane. It is insane what it does to your body. So I mean, more power to them. Wow, it's beyond me.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll be us one day, but
Yeah. Well, so even though there might not be a lot of summer leagues, and you know, you and some of your other teammates were just, focusing on, reps and strengthening the body and resetting the team from a team standpoint, it was a busy summer. So this shouldn't be a surprise to really anyone, but around May, right when the season was finishing up, we saw the news that Coach Cheatham she announced her resignation. And I mean, someone had 10 seasons at the helm as the head coach, and that was after 8 seasons as an assistant. I think she even played at UTSA. So, I mean, I think I saw something like 22 years of just time at UTSA. But, for some different reasons, just her and Dr. Campos came to a decision to go in a different direction. And shortly after that, saw the news that Coach Van was coming in. When did, and I don't want to get too deep into maybe like crossing that locker room privilege and team privilege and everything. But when did you guys kind of know that there was going to maybe be a change in terms of who your coach was?
Honestly, it was towards the end of summer. We were all kind of just like, hello, like, who's our coach?
Yeah.
And Van's so funny. She's not that good with technology. So when we did find out that she was our coach, and she was like, everyone text me your name and whatever, and we all texted her, and everyone's like, did you get a response back? And everyone's like, no, did you? And we're like, no. We're like, okay, what's going on? This is kind of weird. But then you meet her in person, and she's like the biggest personality, super funny, just all over the place, just amazing person. And it's just like you would have never known over the phone. It's just like, that was just crazy because you had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I've got some professors that are like that. I send them an email and I never hear back specifically from them, but then there will be like a class announcement. I'm like, oh, okay. So that was my question right there. Got addressed in the announcement. But that's great to hear that, she's made a great impression on y'all. And it seems like there's a really good group of girls that she's got to work with in terms of what the team's going to look like. So, I mean, outside of her personality, she comes in with a pretty respectful resume. So while she's the 6th head coach in program history, most recently she was the pitching coach at Illinois. She was the head coach at Mississippi State, where she took them to 7 NCAA tournaments in 8 years. 7 of those 8 years, the team amassed 33 wins. So what were some of the things that stood out to you and maybe some of the girls, like right off the bat, for like what she was bringing to the table and the type of coach she was?
I mean, she just knows what she's talking about. All 3 of our coaches, they're just so knowledgeable. You just sit there and you're like, I just want to soak this in. Like, they are so smart, and they just see the game a different way, a different perspective that I haven't really saw before. Cause the game of softball has, what's the word, come so far. Like, what it was 10, 20 years ago is not what it is today. And I think she's been through all of that. She's seen everything change. How the game is played, it's so different. It used to be all power hitters, and now we got slappers in here. And, she just plays the game so strategically. It's like, this is what we need. Like, we need to bunt, we need to squeeze, we need to do all that. Like, home runs win games, but you're not going to get up there every time and hit a home run. And, with our pitchers, you're not going to strike out everyone. So you got to strategically place the ball, strategically call a play, strategically, be on the field a certain way. And they are just so smart when it comes to stuff like that. And they say things, and I'm just like, I never even thought about that. Like, that is so smart. And they have brought it back to like the small fundamental things in softball that you learn when you were like 5 years old. And it's crazy, because I'm like, yeah, guys, I know how to throw and catch, but really in a game, you see so many errors throwing and catching, that wins or loses games. So we have gone back to the most basic parts of softball and have been going and going and going and going and going. And I think that's really important to do, because yeah, we've been playing softball for 15, years, but some of these things go over our heads. Like, I mean, hitting cutoffs and stuff, like, it's just really important things that you wouldn't think are important, but just like the super small details. Softball is a game of small details. So we really have been hounding on those things, and our practices have been super precise and like just focusing on one little thing, which I haven't really done in the past. So it's really nice to, hone in on these small things that do win ball games. And she is super just on point with everything she does. She's super cutthroat, hair on fire. Our practices are just go, 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 go. Like it's a lot, but I can tell that we are going to be good. It's benefiting us very much, no matter how tired we are, because these 4-hour practices you're either going to get through them now and be good in the spring, or you're going to be like, oh, this sucks. Like my body hurts, and you're not going to play in the spring, type of thing.
Yeah. So definitely so pretty situational, it sounds like, with how she approaches the game. The softball, like, I mean, has it gotten as analytical as baseball? Like, I mean, are you guys looking at spray charts? Are you looking at pitch zones and trying to analyze all that? How do you, I mean, you play a pretty, busy position at third base. So what are you looking at during the game or across a weekend series to try to gain an edge over the opposing team?
Yeah, I mean, we'll watch film and all that stuff, and our pitchers do their I forgot what it's called. They pitch to this thing and it just gives them stats and stuff, and we have hit tracks. But mostly for other teams, we'll just scout and watch them, watch many different games. What are their pitchers throwing? Where do we need to play on the field? What do they tend to do on like a 2-strike approach, or do they bunt a lot? Or what is that pitcher throwing up, down, curveball, screwball? So, and whatever they're doing, which I haven't really figured out what our new coaches kind of approach to other teams are yet, but in the past, that's how it is. We watch film, we hound in on what is she throwing? What does their defense do? Do they strategically put the ball down, strategically hit and run, all that stuff. But it'll be interesting to see what this new staff does in terms of, scouting other teams.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I mean, in some ways, like, there's so much information out there. It's like you can't possibly know everything. But then at the end of the day, there's so many parts of it. It's like you just got to get on the field and play the game and see who, maybe wants it more and who brings the better game that day and, come out on top. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Van said something earlier today. She told a story about a team they were playing. She figured out that their center field had a hurt wrist and they were playing up in the field and they hit a ball over, and the runner not over, but hit a ball pretty far. I mean, the girl got a hold of it, but the runner on first scored because they knew that she was hurt. And she was like, that's why you don't tell people those things. Like, you don't tell someone if you're hurt. You keep those things like you said in the locker room. Like, that's team talk.
Yep. So sounds like the possibility of another great hire from Dr. Campos, and looking forward to seeing how things look throughout the fall. We'll get to that in a moment, but then also the spring, when really hit the ground running with conference play and pre-conference play, and new head coach isn't the only thing changing. New conference, American Athletic Conference. And it's always interesting with the spring sports, because like when you guys had your season last year and some of the other sports had their season, I think in a lot of people's minds, to whatever it was, they were already kind of focused on the AAC because that transition happened in the summer. But you guys still had one more season with Conference USA. And then in the spring, it's going to be like your first season with the American Athletic. But we're going through the football season right now. We're going through volleyball, basketball is going to be in the winter. So it kind of gets a little confusing. And sometimes we forget, like, oh, we're not in the American yet, or, oh, we have been in the American for a little while. But what are some things you and the girls and the team are looking forward to about the American Athletic? Who are some teams you might have your eye on? Who are kind of some of the big hitters coming in from the American Athletic and everything with that transition?
Yeah, we can tell we are going to have to compete in this conference because these teams are good. They're scrappy. They know how to win. They know how to play the game. And coming from our last conference, I feel like Conference USA, it was a mediocre conference. I mean, you had those teams who were just like, wow, you are super good. And then you had the teams like, okay, I'm probably going to beat you. And then you had the teams in the middle. It's like anyone can win. But even then, it's like anyone can beat anyone on any given day. So I feel like coming into this new conference, I don't think we should be intimidated by anyone, by any pitcher, by anyone, because it's not the best team on the field. It's who plays the best that day. So they could have a bad day and we take advantage of that. And we win that game. We take that and take advantage of that. But North Texas is coming with us. I think they are some of our biggest competitors for sure. They are a very well-rounded, good team. Like they got it all. So, but they're beatable, we've beat them before. So I think it's nice to have some of the old teams come with us because it's like we know what they're doing. We played them, it's nothing new. But as for the teams we've never played before, I think it is exciting though, because it's like a new look at things. Like how do they do things over there? And we're gonna have to catch on super fast because I'm sure that they are just excited to play us as well because they're like, yeah. Look at our conference, look at yours. But with this coaching staff, I think it's going to be a shock to everyone. We are a completely different team. So if anyone thinks we're just going to be a team that you walk all over, good. Let them think that like we're going to come in there and, we're going to play our game strategically and, surprise people. So I'm super excited for that.
Do you guys ever have like, I guess this would be more with the previous conference because you haven't had a season with the new conference yet, but do you ever have like kind of that chip on your shoulder? Like people are coming into San Antonio. They're like, maybe they're thinking Roadrunner Field looks a little dinky or, they're like, whatever. Like, would you say you guys have like any type of home field advantage in that? And maybe the team kind of not only looking over you on the field, but also just the facilities as well. And how do you kind of let that motivate you and the girls?
Yeah, it's no secret. Our field is not that great. It's a small field too. It's like 200 and center field's 202. And, balls are flying. So we do have an advantage, but I think the other team has an advantage as well. Like our field is small. So, they get a piece of one, it's probably going over. But as for like the chirping goes from other people, like, yeah, our facilities or our field might not be that nice, but we're still going to play our game. We're still going to, go 100%. And last year it was just we just didn't have all the pieces really. So it was just hard for us to win games in general. It was just like, what is going on? Everyone was just like, it wasn't even us against softball. It was like us against each other. Like we were arguing with each other. Like we were just so frustrated. Like, what is happening? What is this? Blaming it on the balls, the bats, the coaches, the field. Like just started blaming it on things that have nothing to do with it instead of looking within ourselves. Like, guys, like it's not that difficult. Like we need to come together as a team. And that's why I think this change was so crucial. Though I really respect our old coaching staff, I just think a change was super necessary in that sense. But we're working with what we got. And like I said, I think we're going to shock a lot of people.
Yeah. Excited to see that. Any AAC teams other than North Texas, other than some of the Conference USA teams that are moving with UTSA to the American Athletic, any kind of like already in the AAC teams you guys kind of have circled, or you're looking forward to maybe traveling to that spot or having them come here to play?
If I'm being honest, I haven't done too much research on the conference itself. I know Wichita State is in that conference. They're pretty scrappy. That's a good team. Okay. I know everyone in that conference is not going to be an easy win. Like we're going to have to work for it really hard. We're going to have to compete every inning, every pitch, every game of the series. As for the team goes, like I said, I haven't really done too much research on, the teams in the conference, but I just know it's going to be a dogfight for sure.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And, so fall season, already talked a lot about how practice has been going, Coach Van and her staff and their philosophy and outlook. Mentioned this. I think I mentioned this already, but first scrimmage coming up this Saturday, September 23rd. So if anyone is not going to if anyone's not traveling to Tennessee to watch UTSA take on Tennessee in football, get out to Roadrunner Field.
Yes.
The first game's at noon and second game's at 2, correct? So great opportunity to catch some softball before kickoff. Kickoff's not till 3 o'clock. I don't know what the weather's going to be like, but hopefully it won't be too hot. How do your guys' scrimmage work for anyone who hasn't been out there before? Is it like a full 9 innings? Like, is it just kind of a straight up like we're just going to face off against each other?
So I think for the first two, like actual scrimmages, aside from practice, sometimes we would do time and then sometimes we'd play a full 7. So it really just depends. But in practice, we have been playing a whole 7 innings. So
yeah,
we'll see.
And it'll probably be nice to, get some new faces in there. You feel a little weird hitting a home run off your roommate or your friend,
Right. No, it definitely gets super competitive. And this season, if you haven't heard of it, it's called Athletes Unlimited, where it's basically a hitting game. So we pick teams and the point leaders are the team leaders and you get to pick people on your team. So I've been a leader a couple times and I get to pick my team. And, one of my best friends is picking the other team and I'm facing her. But basically everything is based on points. So it's hits, a single's 10 points, doubles 20 points, triples 30 points, home run 40. You get it. A walk is 8 points and hit by a pitch is 8 points. So the goal is just to get as many little wins as possible. Like if you can get hit by a pitch, you want those points. Like take them. For pitchers, it's like outs they get, strikeouts. It's minus 10 points for each earned run. I'm not a pitcher. I don't know much about what they are, but it's an offensive game. So, Van said at the beginning of the season, she was like, playing time is going to be based on these points. So show out. There's not going to be any favorites. There's not going to be anything. You need to play good and prove yourself if you want to be on that field. So it's a big competition. And if anyone knows me, they know I'm super competitive. So this is really fun for me to do, but also for everyone as well. You're not just going out there and hitting a ball. Like you're doing it for something. Like you want those points. You want to be that leader. There's 3 MVPs voted every week. So it's just like really rewarding and it puts a point into these practices because scrimmages can get super boring. So, each inning, if nobody scores, it's rollover points. And then, if you don't score for 3 or 4 innings, that's 40 extra points for whatever team gets that. And then whatever team wins in general, I think it's 50 points for everyone on the team. Which is a lot, but you learn to keep track of them. And then we have things called plug points, which is like if you do something out of the ordinary, something good in the weight room, you PR'd or something or anything. It could be anything. You'll get 10 plug points, and we have teams for that. And it's a competition as well. So everything is a competition right now. So
yeah, admittedly, myself and others, I think sometimes we probably suffer from a little bit armchair athlete, sometimes we're why couldn't you come up with that play or, you get that ground ball or whatever. So I think, Coach Van should have some type of, let the students come out and kind of say hey, come out and see who can hit how fast. And I know there's a little bit of correction because of the distance. The mound is shorter for softball than baseball, but when that ball's coming in, what's kind of an average velocity for Division I college softball for the pitchers?
I would say average is 60 to 65. You have those 67, 68 pitchers, but usually 60 to 65 with a bunch of spin. So,
yeah.
You could have that. You could have a girl throwing 58, but if she spins the ball, it is much harder to hit than a straight ball going 67 because you can put your bat out there. But, some of these girls, some of our girls too, going up against our own pitchers, I'm like, whoa, what is that? I'm like, what did she just throw? And she'll get me on it. I'm like, kudos to you. I can't even be mad. You're on my team at the end of the day. I'm glad you're throwing this good. Like it gives me a different perspective. I'm not like mad at anyone. It's like these girls are on the same team. So it's really cool.
And softball, because of like the release point, the ball can actually rise, correct?
Oh yeah.
Like baseball and more kind of like just maintains its level. It sometimes appears like it rises, whatever. But softball, I mean, it's actually coming up at you. So I think, listen, I think Coach Van needs to do this as a fundraiser. Um, you just let's get some people out there and have some fun and see who can hit well off of you guys and humble us
It's funny
as
you
the
say that.
students.
Actually, the other day, so first we were trying to come up with a fundraiser to where our pitchers could pitch to some of these, Fiji fraternity boys because they like to chirp. We're friends with them. They're like, "Oh, I can hit a softball, blah blah blah. I'll
Yeah.
go, 450 yard. I'll do whatever." And we're like, "All right, come on, bring it on then." So we were gonna do that fundraiser type thing, and we kind of got it going a little bit, but we didn't plan it right with like the people higher up because you have to like have waivers and stuff. Like, because if one of our girls gets hurt, then our coach is going to be in trouble. So it was like,
Yeah.
I don't know if we should do this. We couldn't use our field, whatever. But I think we went to a random field on our own time. We were like, all right, y'all get up there. And our girls would just throw to them. And, they're like, what was that? Like, what was that? And they would, I think a couple of them like put it in play and they're like, I made contact. I made contact. I'm like, you're still out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's super funny. But this Sunday, actually, we are having a fundraiser. We're doing a little home run derby with the same guys, but this time it's like an official thing. Like we're going to be doing it on our field. We're not going to have any like live pitching per se, but it is definitely going to be a home run derby. And we'll see some of these unreasonably unathletic boys try to get up there and, go 450 like they said.
Yeah. I mean, listen, this isn't your dad's beer league. Those
Yeah,
those pitches
right.
are coming in a little faster than slow pitch softball and everything. And yeah, just chipping the ball off to the side doesn't really count for anything. And so
Exactly.
I think even do it, say like, hey, for every strike I throw past you, you got to donate $5 to the UTSA softball team, put
Yeah.
their money where the mouth is.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of proceeds right now. Van has been doing little round robins and camps and stuff, and all that
Okay.
money goes towards equipment or gear or something for us. And she is just so good at it. She's a huge people person. Like people love her. Like people want to like help her out. So she's just doing a super good job of getting us noticed by people, just putting us out there, getting people to come here. So everything's just going so smooth right now.
Yeah. Outside of like what's coming up on Sunday. And I think so for our Patreons, they'll hear about it beforehand. Because this is dropping a little early for our Patreons. But outside of Sunday's fundraiser, is there anything in the spring that you guys do, like a big fundraiser to try to help raise that budget or like add to that budget at all that we can kind of keep on the radar?
Maybe I would say with Van, I would say there's definitely going to be a couple things. Like
Yeah.
she's very adamant about getting out there and doing stuff like that. Last year, I don't think we really had anything like that, but I would assume there's going to be some things this spring for sure.
Great. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Let's kind of wrap things up. We've kind of already hinted at this throughout some ways, talking about, working, the responsibilities of student athletes, just the physical, emotional, psychological aspect of being a student athlete. What like NIL, I know that you've done stuff before for Runners Rising Project. Like what's kind of like the NIL outlook for like softball? Like what are you doing anything for NIL opportunities? Are the girls kind of like what's out there for you guys for NIL opportunities?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different resources that you can use and like a little websites that'll you'll sign up and they'll send you things that if it's something you want to do, you click yes. If it's something you don't want to do, you click no. You can be in like a Adidas ambassador type thing. There is some NIL that have reached out to me. It's just I've been so busy. I'm just like I don't have time to go film content for this and post it on my Instagram. I'm like, I barely have time to do my homework, but I definitely want to get more into the NIL because I mean, why not? There's only benefits to that. So I think I'm going to figure out and time management, some things, and get into that a little bit more because I definitely think it's super beneficial to everyone.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's neat to see. I mean, there's always been benefits to or different ways, I should say, that the student athletes can get help with everything. But I mean, even just like responsibilities, like, I mean, you guys are playing fall ball and it's not as involved as spring, but it's basically a 12-month commitment because the summer maybe you're not playing, but you're working just as hard for the fall and the spring. So anything that can be passed and worked out to just kind of take the load off of you guys and some of your responsibilities and make it a little easier. Definitely all for that. Well, Camryn, thank you so much. It's been great chatting just about your journey at UTSA, how you've done on the field, the things looking forward to, your junior season, both as an individual and as a team. UTSA sounds like a lot of things moving in the right direction with Coach Van and where the girls are at and the chemistry and everything. So thank you again for coming on. Any last parting words, insight, stories you can leave us with?
Oh, I mean, birds up. Again, thank you so much for having me. It was really nice talking to you and, going over some of these things. I actually haven't really spoken about these things to really anyone. So it was nice to kind of get it out there because it is super exciting. So again, thank you.
Yeah, no, for sure. And before we sign off, where can people connect with you on social media, follow along how you're doing, how your season's going?
Probably Instagram. It's my name, just Camryn Robillard. So if you want to follow me on there, I repost a lot of stories and things. So events, all that stuff. So yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks again and have a great rest of your day.
Yes, sir. You too.
Thanks.